This is Center Stage, putting lawyers in the spotlight by highlighting attorneys and other industry experts to help take your law firm to the next level.
All right, hey everyone, Mark here from Spotlight Branding. I'm really excited for today's episode. We're going to talk about why it's important, if you're able to not necessarily name your law firm after yourself. I've got Antonio with me here today, a Spotlight Branding client and someone who just recently underwent the process of changing their name. So Antonio is going to tell us about why he did that, as well as kind of what the process was of choosing the name, and also some of the logistics to think of in case you're going to be in that boat yourself. But before we get started, Antonio, welcome to the show. Tell us about yourself and who the heck you are so that we all know why we should listen to you.
Thanks. And thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm Antonio Jimenez. I'm an attorney here in Florida. I've been an attorney for the past 13 years, and I am the owner and founder of Florida Divorce Law Group. And we basically practice throughout Florida, headquarters in Jacksonville, but we have offices in Miami, Tampa, and Orlando, and we concentrate on divorce and family law.
Excellent. All right. So you weren't always Florida Divorce Law Group, right? So let's just dive right in, right? At some point, you obviously decided, I don't want to name my law firm after myself anymore. So tell us about that.
Right. I started my law firm in January of 2008. And I've had different names, but they all reflected my name. So at one point, I was the law office of Antonio G. Jimenez. Another point, I was just Antonio G. Jimenez, and I went from a corporation to a sole proprietor. So I did that for a couple of years and realized that tax-wise, that didn't make any sense. And eventually I ended up with Jimenez Legal PA. And at the end of last year, at some point in the fall, I basically started realizing, like, if I really want to grow this law firm and I don't want to be just basically a single attorney constantly trying to hustle for clients, I needed to create not only a name, but a brand, and basically get to the point where it's like, look, you're not hiring me. I am the face, I'm the expert, I'm going to talk to you, but you're hiring our team. And eventually you're going to be working with an associate. And then that will enable me to free up my time, because I've been doing this for 13 years and it gets to the point where you get burned out. Everything falls on you. So if you want to grow your business and have a business, an actual business, then you need to get away from thinking this is me all the time. I'm a solo practitioner. And if that's your goal, fine. But if you want to create a legitimate business, then you got to think about branding, and having the right name is the first step for branding.
I agree. I mean, and look, I know people running 7-figure law firms that have it named after themselves, but you're right. What that still does is, like, even if you have figured out how to build the business, people still want to come in and talk to you because the firm's, your name's on the building, right?
Right. And I think that's the issue. It's like, how do you grow a law firm where it just has your name? I mean, you could become an expert, you could become a board certified lawyer, but at the end, you're doing all the work. So at what point do you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor? And until you create a legitimate business that can truly expand, my opinion, you're not going to truly enjoy the fruits of your labor. And I just know this from 13 years of practicing, since 2008. And it's like, okay, great, I'm generating revenue, but I'm not at the level that I should be. And I think that's what it is. I mean, I do know a lot of attorneys, like personal injury lawyers, and they have their name on it and they can grow it. So there is a way of doing it.
It can work, but there's always going to be complications because of it.
I mean, think about Morgan & Morgan. How is Morgan & Morgan ever going to be able to sell their firm? They don't need to, I guess, because they're multimillionaires. But
Morgan & Morgan has actually become a brand.
Yeah, true.
But the point is, I think you're saying, Jimenez PA, or was it would take a Morgan & Morgan like effort.
Yes.
To actually build that into a real brand.
And I really, this is my personal opinion of, practicing, but unless you are a personal injury attorney, I believe it's really hard to create that. Because if, at one point I was a criminal defense attorney before I transitioned to family law. And it gets to the point where as a criminal defense attorney that it's like, okay, I want to hire you. I want you to defend me in the,
I want Johnny Cochran, baby.
Yeah, or not. Yeah, look at the Cochran law firm. I mean, Cochran already passed away, but the firm is continuing based on his name. But
because they built a brand, right? So you basically need OJ, or you need
everybody knows who Johnny Cochran is or who he was. So it makes sense because that if you call the Cochran firm, unless you are completely oblivious to history, you realize, okay, this person passed away. So there's no way that he's coming back to represent me. So I'm going to go with whoever else is in the firm. So there are times that it could work, but overall it's not, I don't believe that it can happen.
Well, and even if we, I mean, right. And I think, there's some people that would debate that. But even if we put that aside, right, even if we put aside just how big you can become when your name's on the practice, even if we put that aside, there's some other difficulties or opportunities. And, you've mentioned branding a few times, and that's the one that jumps out to me, obviously, because I own a company called Spotlight Branding. But the other thing is that I personally feel like, and I'd love for you to comment on this because I don't want to offend anyone, but I personally feel like putting your name on the law firm also puts the focus in the wrong place.
Right. It puts the focus on the attorney.
Right, exactly. And when we think about marketing, like it should be all about the client, right? Like even when you name your law firm Florida Divorce Law Group, you're really speaking to the client now, right? Just by looking at your name, I know if I'm in the right place or not. And so I also think it's not just the negatives of putting your name on the law firm. What I'm suggesting is there's also a lot of opportunity to connect with your market better by choosing a name that actually means something to them.
Right. I mean, the only downside is that you will be pigeonholed on that practice area. But again, I go back to my experience, especially doing criminal. When I started doing family, I quickly realized that this is the area of law that I truly have a passion for. And, I have a master's in forensics, a master's in criminal justice. I was a prosecutor. I thought that I was going to be a prosecutor forever. And then at some point I would become a criminal court judge. And then I left the prosecutor's office as state attorney because of income. They don't pay enough. And I went to Stetson, so I have all these private student loans. And I started doing criminal defense and I enjoyed it. But the problem with criminal defense is, and I know I'm going to get a little bit off topic, but just, the problem with criminal defense is that it's really a business. You can come into my office and you could tell me I'm charged with XYZ crime. These are my priors. And immediately I will know, okay, you're looking at 3 years of probation around there. You're looking at a diversion program. So business wise, it's okay, but it wasn't challenging. Whereas with a divorce practice, not only is it a business part of it, obviously, but there is this beauty where you actually feel like an attorney. There's different variables in every single case, and you truly need to know the law. I mean, just this morning, I texted one of my clients and I said, do you realize that you don't have all the rights? It's equal rights for when it comes to children. And I texted her what the actual statute says. So on a daily basis, I am quoting Florida law. So I am practicing law. Whereas with criminal defense, I don't need to quote what the elements of battery are or what the elements of an aggravated battery are. So I fell in love with it. So now I got to the point where for branding purposes and marketing, do I want to be Jimenez Legal PA? And then when someone clicks on my website or my lead or what have you, then it talks about divorce. Whereas if you're searching for a divorce lawyer and you see Florida Divorce Law Group, that's like right off the bat. All right, this is a divorce practice. Absolutely. And it says group. So they must have like a bunch of experience and a bunch of attorneys working together. And it starts to convey that message that,
I agree.
Hey, we can truly help you. And then ultimately it will expand to the point where now I'm just a business owner. I can focus on running the business, on marketing, on speaking to the clients, doing webinars, and basically being the face. I mean, right now I'm in the process of trying to become a board certified divorce lawyer. So eventually it'll be like the founder is a board certified attorney. He is the expert. and I can advertise myself as an expert now when I become board certified, and that'll bring people in. But then it's going to be like, look, I'm supervising the cases. I'm the overall supervisor, but I have, John in Tampa doing the Tampa cases. I have Melissa in Miami doing the Miami cases, so I can grow the practice. And then the beauty of it is eventually, if I want to retire, I could sell the practice. I can start to market it and say, look, this practice generates $1 million plus a year, $2 million a year in revenue. This is the system that we have in place. This is the marketing that we have in place. This is what the business is worth. And then you can sell the business and somebody else can come in and buy it. And so,
and frankly, if I can just add, I actually know someone who recently went through a merger. It was more of an acquisition, really, but there was so much conversation around the name and whose names stay up, and it's like, so obviously you can sell a law firm with your name on it, but somebody buying Florida Divorce Law Group is so much more attractive as a buyer, right? And then I don't have to ask myself the question of, well, what happens when Jimenez isn't part of the law firm anymore, right?
Right. And so that's kind of where my mindset was. And, I started signing up for like different business coaching, and that's kind of what got my brain, the wheels moving, and saying, you know what, I'm getting tired. I love what I do, but how do I get to the point where I'm big enough that I can focus on the cases that I truly love and let others do the work, and I could supervise, and maybe I get to the point where I'm not really day-to-day practicing law per se, where I'm dealing with the cases, but I am day-to-day meeting with the other attorneys and saying, hey, what's going on with the John Doe case? What's going on with this case? Where do you need help?
And it also, it's actually empowering your staff, right? When they don't feel like people coming in are just wanting to, it's kind of like, I'm meeting with one of your attorneys, and what I'm really wondering is, well, what would Antonio Jimenez say about this?
Right.
Because
you're advertising that you're the expert, you're the board certified. So that implies, okay, family and divorce law, Florida law, backwards and forwards, and you know how different things can operate and different strategies and things like that. Like if you inherit a marital property, but then you've been putting money in, because if you inherit a property, it should be yours completely. But now there's different variables, whereas, well, I inherited, but my spouse, my wife, was the one that actually poured money to remodel the home. So the home went from being worth 500 to now being worth 700 because of her efforts, but I inherited. So now we're going through a divorce. How do we deal with that? And so someone like myself that has the experience and the expertise in that area can come in and say, this is how we'll deal with it. And then an associate who probably has been an attorney for 3 to 5 years, or maybe 2 to 5 years, doesn't have that experience. But the client is going to know, hey, there's an expert in the firm, and that expert is supervising and basically the guru, and everybody else is kind of learning from him.
I agree, but I will tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if that component isn't as necessary as it might seem, because I do think by building the name Florida Divorce Law Group, you're going to end up building the brand as the expert more than any one individual. Because remember, the average client doesn't even know the rules around being board certified and how you can only call yourself an expert if you are. So really, as you build this presence for the name of the firm, the client is going to associate that expertise to the associate. So I think what you're going to do is good, and you should do it. But I think, just to kind of go back to the idea of what's the value in a name like yours, is that it is going to build a little bit of cachet for your whole staff.
Right. And I think what's important for, any listener, the listener to understand is you have to be flexible. So you may have an idea right now of how it could work, but 5 years down the road, that idea no longer makes sense. So I can think of it this way, where I'm going to do X, Y, Z, But 5 years from now, I realized, that hasn't impacted my clients at all. Like I used to do flat fees and it was great for marketing, but I've also been rejected where the client says, I went with a different firm. And I'm like, but they charge you by the hour. And the client is like, I don't care. So, I'm actually going through my own family case and on a different matter, but I've had to meet with different lawyers and they were all charging hourly. And I still went with someone that had the expertise and I felt comfortable with. And that's what kind of, it makes you realize like, if you really want to hire this person, this law firm, the money part is not really going to matter as long as it's fair and reasonable. But the money part is a part. I don't really, and the clients that I target, it's not really about money. It's really about how can you help me?
We talk about this. We see this all the time in consumer products. Like, why am I willing to pay $4 or $5 for a coffee instead of $1? Because I believe the Starbucks coffee is better because it's built a brand. Doesn't matter who my barista is, Yeah. Well, I want to transition though, because we got a couple of minutes left and there's some components of this that I want to ask you about. The first is, you made this name change pretty recently, right?
Right. We made it at some point in the fall, and I was actually an LLC, a PLLC, and it was basically the owner of the LLC was Jimenez Legal PA. And actually just yesterday, I began the process of converting from the LLC to a PA, where it's no longer going to be owned by Jimenez Legal. And then I'm going to transition to the point where I dissolve completely Jimenez Legal PA, and I am just full-blown Florida Divorce Law Group PA.
So I think what's interesting, it would probably be helpful to a lot of people, is if you could just talk about, I'm imagining that most people that have had their law firm 10 plus years like you did, and I know you changed the name a couple of times, but still there had to be a little bit of a concern or something around, okay, I've still built up some equity in my name, right? So kind of share about the experience of the decision in a way that maybe speaks to the person who has had their firm for 10 plus years and is worried about making that change.
That was actually a concern of mine. And I also relocated from Miami to Jacksonville. And it was like, how is this going to impact? Because I've built this name and this practice down in Miami. And, again, I converted, a few years ago from criminal to family. And what I've learned is it doesn't matter. It hasn't impacted me at all. I even, my website was even, and I've had that website for years and years and years. It was JimenezLegal.com. And now the website that I have is FloridaDivorce.law. So I'm not even a .com, I'm a .law. No change whatsoever.
And of course, Jimenez Legal just probably redirects.
Yeah, right. Jimenez Legal redirects, but now I'm building that new website, and my revenue has actually gone up since, of course, we were impacted last year by COVID, but the revenue is up, and I'm getting clients because I'm advertising throughout Florida. I'm getting clients in different places, Marion County, Collier County, what have you. But I am getting a lot of clients from the Northeast, from Jacksonville, from St. Johns County. And what I quickly realized was that my fear, my concern with doing the transition was not well-founded, because the primary reason is you can have a brand and you can have a name and all that, but when you transition to a new name, your advertising should reflect the new name and the new branding. And if you do your advertising correctly and you modify all the things that you have out there with your previous name to the new name, your advertising is not going to fall off. You're still going to get leads. You're still going to get clients. Now it becomes, how do you close those leads?
Sure.
So I haven't had a single issue transitioning, which is why now, March 2021, I am extremely comfortable with dissolving Jimenez Legal PA and being 100% Florida Divorce Law Group PA. But I will give another tip, which is when you do incorporate, you should also do a fictitious name, a DBA, that'll reflect the same name, but you don't have to advertise with the PA, because I think Florida Divorce Law Group PA, I think it doesn't sound as, as good as just Florida Divorce Law Group.
The Florida Divorce Law Group is the DBA.
Right. It's a DBA of Florida Divorce Law Group PA. But, when you do the DBA, it allows you legally to remove the PA from the end of the name, and
realistically, if somebody just wanted to kind of dabble in this and was a little hesitant, couldn't they even just go ahead and create a DBA?
That's what I did.
A law firm right now, so if I had a law firm, Cerniglia Law, but I wanted to create Charlotte Divorce Law Group as a DBA, I could do that now.
Right.
And then maybe later, once I feel married to it, I could go back and change the actual, corporate name or PA name or LLC name.
Yep. That's one of the ways to do it. And I actually created another fictitious name, a DBA, and it was, I think, Jacksonville Divorce Group or something like that. And I don't even know top of my head what the name was, but it was something Jacksonville related. And I never ended up using it, but it was a DBA. And the reason I didn't use it is because, and this is another, I guess, tip, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a niche in one city? Like, do you want to be a Jacksonville lawyer? Do you want to be a Miami lawyer? What type of practice do you want to do? For me, my branding, my idea is I want to become the largest family and divorce practice that is based in Florida. There's another firm that they're all over Florida, but their headquarters is somewhere like in Illinois. And it's like, they have like this, I can't even figure out what they do, but they have attorneys, but I don't know if the attorney kind of owns the firm and it's kind of like a franchise. I don't know. But, I want to create the largest firm. So I don't want to be associated with one city. I want to be associated with all of Florida. So if you need a divorce and like this, I've gotten cases from these counties in the middle, central Florida, where I've had to Google, where's this county located? Because I've never heard of this county. We have, at top of my head, I'm thinking we have like 62, 63 different counties throughout Florida. So there's a lot of counties that I've never heard of. And so that's the question when you're creating your name and your practice is, well, what do you want? What is your end goal? Do you want to just be specific city, or do you want to be statewide? And of course, if you're statewide, you got to really work on the marketing and all of that to be able to expand. But I feel confident right now with the marketing that we're doing that we are getting leads throughout Florida. And the other thing that I did was I Googled different law firms throughout the country, not just Florida, and try to see, okay, what names are you doing? And there's a great divorce practice. They're based in Georgia, and they're actually called Atlanta Divorce Law Group. And so I saw that kind of gave me an idea.
And you're like, is Florida divorce law taken?
Right. And so I go to Sunbiz. Just last night, I'm thinking about getting into day trading and getting into the stock market. I kind of wish I would have done something different last year and gotten into GameStop, and it would have been a complete game changer. But I started looking into that and trying to say, okay, what's available? And I was looking at different names, like Beachfront Investments, Oceanfront Investments, Northeast Investment Company. All kinds of different names to see what's out there. But that's how I did my initial research.
That's a great point, because sometimes you'd be surprised at what's available, and something I want to do is, I think that, you kind of talked about the different ways to think about your name. And I agree. You want to think about location. You want to think about, am I okay niching down to just a certain practice area? But the other component is also just thinking about what's your brand? Like, what are you all about? Like, for example, I know a law firm out in Alabama called New Beginnings Family Law. So they went a different route, but the value is still there because they're communicating something about their firm, right? So they weren't as interested in appealing to everybody in a location. What they wanted to do was they wanted to appeal to more of a mindset. They wanted the people that were desperately thinking, I want a fresh start, right? But that still has value, and so I hope that I think the the world is your oyster, right? When it comes to your name and any of that, whether it's new beginnings or Florida divorce, the thing I hope the listeners walk away with today is you have a chance to really create a name that says something to your listeners. So Antonio, I loved having you. I want to go ahead and wrap up, but let's do this. Why don't you tell people how they can get in touch with you? I'm sure some people listening, if you're open to it, might have a follow-up question or two if they're thinking about changing their name. And then who knows, you might have some people in Florida that know someone who needs to go through the divorce process. So can you just kind of share with us any follow-up thoughts you have? You're welcome to get the last word. And then also how people can get in touch with you. And then stay tuned because we always end with one final question for Antonio, but I won't tell him what that question just is yet.
All right,
but yeah, let us know any final thoughts you have and kind of how we can get in touch with you.
Sure. So a final thought is you definitely have to be open-minded, be flexible. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to speak to either attorneys, a business coach and what have you, so that you can really try to figure out how do I create this, because and I'm assuming a lot of the listeners are attorneys, we know how to practice law. We know what it means to do a contract or to do, what have you, and how to go to court. But did they ever teach us in law school how to run a business? Did they ever teach us how to do a business plan? How to figure out calculate your what's a good revenue goal to have? How much revenue do you need to generate on a regular basis? Like, no one ever taught us this. And I had no clue for the longest time. I was just going with the wind and like whatever comes in. But now you're trying to grow that. So you have to be able to not only be open-minded, but you have to know you don't know it all. Like, I don't know it all. I'm only 42 years old. I've only been doing this, having my own practice for 12, 13 years now. So it's like, okay, I don't know all the answers. Who can I reach out to? Who do I see out there that, hey, this person seems to know what they're doing and I really like what they're doing? Let me give them a call. Let me invite them out for a coffee. Or now, because of the pandemic, we're doing.
I'll tell you what, I think you may have cheated, because the question we ask at the end is, if there is one piece of advice you can give to attorneys, what would it be? And it's just any topic, but I love it. I mean, I feel like what you basically said, and I'm using my own words here, is like, utilize other attorneys, right? I mean, I talk about this a lot on some of my own content that I do, how there's really no situation or problem that is so unique to you and your firm.
Yeah. And the thing is, don't focus on the area of law that you're doing. There's a great attorney down in Miami, and I'll market him. It's called the Probate Law Firm. And I've met with him a few times. We talk every now and then. He has a great marketing, and he's young. He's been practicing, actually, I believe, less than me. And his name of his firm is the Probate Law Firm. And I was like, that's a beautiful name. All he does is probate, and I think he dabbles in estate planning as well. But to me, it's like, it's great. And I've actually had clients that needed probate help, and I'm like, call the Probate Law Firm. They're down in Miami. Like, if you Google it, you'll see.
Which one? No, the Probate.
Yeah, and that's great branding. And so the point is, I do divorce, he does probate, but I don't need to talk to him about probate. He doesn't need to talk to me about divorce.
How about business and strategy?
Right, marketing. What are you doing? What are your goals? How do you grow your practice? Oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to do that. And then vice versa. So the biggest tip is, speak to other lawyers, look at the business that they're running. And if you like what you see, give them a call, and don't just focus on your area of law. That doesn't matter.
It's great.
Focus on what they're doing. So yeah, I love it. I love the branding, and I love being able to I want to grow this to that point and have that vision, because the vision is also going to help you avoid burnout, because you're thinking long-term, you're thinking the end game. So right now you deal with the pain, you deal with the burnout, because you know where the potential is if you do this right.
Got it. All right. So how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. My cell phone's all over the web, so I don't mind giving it out, but my direct number is 786-525-7671, 786-525-7671. And my email is extremely easy. Antonio at floridadivorce.law.
And that was the website too, the floridadivorce.law.
Floridadivorce.law.
Well, awesome. Thanks for coming by and spending time with us. I hope the audience found this helpful, and I just really appreciated getting to sit down with you.
Thanks for inviting me. This has been great. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/centerstage.